What happens when a fragile peace forces two strangers from rival tribes into a union neither of them wanted, only to spark a connection neither of them expected? Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story and where you're watching from and why you're following this. The vast Texas plains stretched endlessly under the merciless summer sun of 1845. Tall grass swayed in the hot breeze, painting the landscape in waves of gold and green. Morning Star, a young Kiowa woman of 20 summers, stood at the edge of her tribe's camp, her dark eyes scanning the horizon with apprehension. Her tribe's elders had been in council for 3 days, discussing the increasing tensions with the neighboring Comanche tribe. They have decided, her father, Chief Gray Wolf, approached with heavy steps. His weathered face, marked with the wisdom of many winters, looked unusually troubled. What will happen, father? Morning Star asked, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her heart. The Comanche grow stronger each season. Their warriors outnumber ours 3-1. Their chief, Thunder Bear, has proposed a treaty. He paused, placing his hands on his daughter's shoulders. A treaty sealed through marriage. Morning Star felt her blood run cold. Marriage? You are to become the wife of Black Hawk, their most feared warrior. The man whose name makes our enemies tremble. Gray Wolf's voice cracked slightly. This will bring peace between our tribes. Many lives will be spared. Morning Star looked away, her thoughts racing. She had heard stories of Black Hawk, his fierceness in battle, his unmatched skill with bow and horse. Some said he had killed 30 men before his 20th summer. Others whispered he had the spirit of a demon inside him. When? She asked simply. Tomorrow at dawn. The ceremony will take place at the Boundary Creek, where our territories meet. That night, as the camp prepared for the ceremony, Morning Star sat alone in her tipi. Her mother had braided her long black hair with beads and feathers, dressed her in their finest deerskin dress, adorned with porcupine quills. Now in solitude, she allowed herself to weep silently. Sister, came a soft voice. Her younger brother, Little Fox, entered the tipi with cautious steps. At 15, he already showed signs of becoming a skilled hunter. I could take you away. We could ride north, find shelter with the Lakota. Morning Star smiled sadly, touching her brother's cheek. And bring war to our people? No, Little Fox. I will do what must be done. They say he has killed 100 men, Little Fox whispered. Men exaggerate, she replied, though uncertainty filled her heart. Dawn broke with a blood-red sky. The Kiowa tribe gathered their finest horses, loading them with gifts for the Comanche. Morning Star rode beside her father, her face a mask of composure, though her hands trembled slightly on the reins of her paint horse. They arrived at the Boundary Creek as the sun fully emerged above the horizon. On the opposite bank stood the Comanche warriors, their faces painted for the ceremony, feathers adorning their long hair. At their center stood a tall, broad-shouldered man mounted on a magnificent black stallion. Black Hawk. Even from a distance, Morning Star could see the intensity in his gaze as he watched her approach. His face bore the scars of many battles, and eagle feathers hung from his hair, marking his achievements in war. Yet there was something unexpected in his eyes, not cruelty, but a deep, evaluating intelligence. The ceremony proceeded with the traditional exchanges. Morning Star was helped from her horse by her mother, who whispered final blessings in her ear. She walked alone across the shallow creek, water soaking the hem of her ceremonial dress. Feeling the weight of both tribes' gazes upon her, Black Hawk dismounted, standing tall before her. Up close, she could see he was younger than she had imagined, perhaps 25 summers. A long scar ran from his temple to his jaw, and his hands were calloused from years of wielding weapons. I am Morning Star of the Kiowa, she said in the trade language both tribes understood, her voice clear despite her fear. I am Black Hawk of the Comanche, he replied, his voice deep and measured. From this day you walk my path. He held out his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, she placed hers in his. His grip was firm, but not painful. As the elders chanted the marriage prayers, Morning Star stole glances at the man who was now her husband. wondering what life awaited her among the Comanche. What she didn't expect was the small nod of respect he gave her as he helped her mount his horse, nor the careful way he adjusted his riding to ensure she wouldn't fall as they departed toward Comanche lands. These small gestures sparked the first seeds of curiosity in Morning Star's heart. Perhaps there was more to this feared warrior than the stories told. The Comanche camp sprawled across a wide valley, much larger than Morning Star's Kiowa village. Dozens of tipis formed concentric circles around a central gathering space, with horses, hundreds of them, grazing in nearby meadows. Children paused in their play to stare as Black Hawk led the procession into camp, their new Kiowa bride sitting tall behind him. Black Hawk helped Morning Star dismount, then addressed the gathering crowd in Comanche. Though she couldn't understand his words, his authoritative tone needed no translation. The crowd parted, and an elderly woman stepped forward, her face lined with years, but her eyes sharp and evaluating. "This is Wind Woman, my mother," Black Hawk said in the trade language. "She will show you to our lodge." Wind Woman circled Morning Star, examining her with unabashed curiosity. Finally, she nodded once and gestured for Morning Star to follow. As they walked through the camp, Morning Star felt dozens of eyes upon her, some curious, others suspicious, a few openly hostile. The tipi belonging to Black Hawk stood somewhat apart from the others, larger and decorated with painted scenes of battles and buffalo hunts. Inside, Morning Star found it unexpectedly orderly, with separate spaces for sleeping, cooking, and storage of weapons. "You will learn our ways," Wind Woman said in halting trade language. "My son is important man, his wife must be strong." "I am strong," Morning Star replied, meeting the older woman's gaze steadily. Wind Woman's weathered face cracked into a smile. "We will see." The following days passed in a blur of new routines and faces. Morning Star quickly realized that Black Hawk's position in the tribe was even more significant than she had imagined. He was not only their most accomplished warrior, but also the chief's most trusted advisor and likely successor. Black Hawk himself remained an enigma. He treated her with a distant respect, ensuring she had everything needed, but rarely speaking beyond necessary communications. At night, he slept on the opposite side of the tipi, maintaining a careful distance. 2 weeks after her arrival, Morning Star was collecting water at the stream when 3 Comanche women approached. Their leader, a striking woman with a proud bearing, spoke directly to her. "I am Raven Hair. I was to be Black Hawk's wife before you came," she said, her trade language flawless and cutting. "Your presence is an insult. You are Kiowa weak people who hide in the hills rather than fight." Morning Star set down her water pot carefully. "I did not choose this marriage, but I am here now and I will honor it." Raven Hair stepped closer. "You will never be Comanche. Black Hawk deserves a true Comanche woman, not some peace offering." Rather than responding with anger, Morning Star picked up her water pot again. "Perhaps. But it seems the elders thought differently." She turned to leave, but Raven Hair knocked the pot from her hands, spilling water across the dusty ground. Morning Star stood motionless, acutely aware of the watching eyes around the camp. Her response would define her place here. Slowly, she picked up the empty pot, walked back to the stream, and refilled it. Then, facing Raven Hair directly, she said, "I thank you for teaching me how heavy water can be when spilled. Tomorrow, I will carry 2 pots." That evening, as she prepared the evening meal, Black Hawk entered the tipi earlier than usual. He sat across the fire from her, watching as she worked. "I heard about what happened at the stream," he said finally. Morning Star continued her work without looking up. "It was nothing. Raven Hair has a sharp tongue and sharper pride." "Pride is valuable when earned," Morning Star replied carefully, "as is restraint." Black Hawk was silent for so long that she thought the conversation finished. Then he said, "You handled it well. Many would have fought or complained." Morning Star finally looked up, meeting his dark eyes. "Fighting would solve nothing. I am here to build peace, not continue war." Something shifted in Black Hawk's expression, a softening around the eyes perhaps. The Kiowa are known for wisdom. I see it in you. That night, for the first time, they talked. Black Hawk asked about her family, her life among the Kiowa. She learned that he had lost 2 brothers to warfare with white settlers, that he had killed his first buffalo at age 12, that despite his fearsome reputation, he preferred solving problems through strategy rather than bloodshed when possible. "Why do you ride into battle then?" she asked. "Because sometimes words fail, and blood must speak," he answered. "But I take no joy in death, only in protecting what belongs to the Comanche." As the weeks passed, Morning Star found herself adapting to Comanche life. She learned their language quickly, won Wind Woman's grudging approval with her skilled beadwork, and even earned respect from some of the other women for her knowledge of healing plants, which she willingly shared. Black Hawk, too, changed. He began spending more evenings in their tipi, teaching her Comanche hunting stories, and listening with genuine interest to Kiowa tales. The careful distance between their sleeping places gradually narrowed. One night, after 4 moons had passed since their marriage, Morning Star woke to find Black Hawk sitting at the tipi entrance, staring out at the star-filled sky. "What troubles you?" she asked, moving to sit beside him. "White settlers are pushing farther into our hunting grounds," he said. "Their chief in Washington speaks of peace while his people take our land." Morning Star considered his words. "My father always said that the white man's hunger for land is a sickness that cannot be cured." Black Hawk nodded. "Your father is wise. Tomorrow I ride with 20 warriors to observe their new fort. They are building it on sacred Comanche ground. Will there be fighting? Not if we can avoid it. But we must show strength." He turned to her, his face grave in the dim light. "If something happens to me," Morning Star pressed her fingers to his lips, surprising both of them with the gesture, "return safely. That is all." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, concern, perhaps, or something deeper neither was ready to name. Black Hawk took her hand and held it against his chest, where she could feel his heart beating strongly. "I will return," he promised. 7 days passed with no word from Black Hawk's scouting party. Morning Star maintained her daily routines, grinding corn, tanning hides, helping Wind Woman with her tasks, but her eyes constantly drifted to the eastern horizon. On the 8th day, as she was collecting medicinal herbs on the outskirts of the camp, a commotion rose from the central gathering place. Racing back, she saw riders approaching, but far fewer than had departed. As they drew closer, her heart sank. Many were wounded, their bodies slumped over their horses. Black Hawk led them, his face grim, a blood-stained bandage wrapped around his upper arm. The tribe gathered as the warriors dismounted. Morning Star pushed through the crowd, her eyes fixed on Black Hawk. When he saw her, something flickered across his face, relief, perhaps. "What happened?" Thunder Bear, the aging chief, demanded. "The white soldiers attacked without warning," Black Hawk reported, his voice carrying across the hushed gathering. "We were observing from the ridge when they sent riders to surround us. 8 of our brothers will not return." A collective murmur of grief and anger swept through the crowd. Morning Star stepped forward, reaching for Black Hawk's injured arm, but he shook his head slightly. "Not here, not before the tribe had processed this news." Thunder Bear raised his hands for silence. "This cannot stand unanswered. We will mourn our dead, then we will bring justice to those who have broken the peace." Later, in their tipi, Morning Star carefully unwrapped Black Hawk's wound. The bullet had torn through muscle but missed bone. As she cleaned it with a mixture of herbs and hot water, she felt his eyes studying her face. "You have healing hands," he said softly. "My grandmother was our tribe's medicine woman. She taught me." Morning Star applied a poultice of crushed leaves. "This will draw out any poison." "There is already poison," he replied, "between our peoples and the whites." "What will happen now?" she asked, securing the bandage. Black Hawk's expression darkened. "War. Thunder Bear will call for all Comanche bands to unite. There will be raids on the settlements, attacks on the forts." Morning Star sat back on her heels. "And the treaty with my people?" "The treaty holds," he assured her. "Your father's band has also suffered from white encroachment. Thunder Bear will likely ask for Kiowa warriors to join us." The thought of her brother and cousins riding into battle against the white man's guns filled Morning Star with dread. She had seen the bodies of the returning warriors, had helped tend their wounds. The white soldiers' weapons were devastating. "There must be another way," she said. Black Hawk touched her cheek, a gesture so unexpected and gentle that she momentarily forgot to breathe. "What other way is there when they take our land, kill our people, and break every promise?" Morning Star covered his hand with her own. "I don't know. But more death will only bring more death." That night, for the first time, Black Hawk moved his sleeping robes beside hers. Neither spoke of it, but when Morning Star woke in the darkest hours before dawn, she found his arm wrapped protectively around her waist, his breath warm against her neck. Something had shifted between them, something profound and unspoken. The following weeks brought a flurry of activity as warriors from other Comanche bands arrived, swelling the camp to twice its normal size. Hunting parties rode out daily to provide meat for the growing numbers. Weapons were repaired and crafted, horses trained for battle. The air hummed with tension and purpose. A messenger arrived from the Kiowa, bringing news that Chief Gray Wolf would send 30 warriors to support the Comanche cause. The messenger also brought a personal token for Morning Star, a small pouch containing a lock of her mother's hair and a tiny carved wooden fox, a reminder of her brother. That evening, as she sat outside their tipi working on a pair of moccasins, Morning Star noticed a group of children watching her from a distance. Since her arrival, the Comanche children had generally avoided her, sensing her otherness. Now curiosity seemed to have overcome their reserve. She smiled at them and continued her work. After several minutes, a small girl of perhaps 6 summers approached cautiously. "Are you really Kiowa?" the child asked in Comanche. "Yes," Morning Star answered in the same language, her accent now barely noticeable after months of practice. "My father says Kiowa are enemies," the girl stated, tilting her head questioningly. "Once perhaps. Now we are allies." The girl considered this, then pointed to Morning Star's beadwork. "Your patterns are different. Would you like to learn them?" Morning Star offered, holding out a small strip of hide and some beads. The child hesitated, then nodded and sat beside her. Soon, other children drifted closer, watching as Morning Star taught the traditional Kiowa beading patterns. By sunset, 5 children sat around her, their small fingers working with varying degrees of success. Black Hawk found them thus when he returned from the council meeting. He stood watching for a long moment before approaching. The children scattered at the sight of the fearsome warrior, all except the small girl who remained focused on her beadwork. "Little Rabbit," Black Hawk addressed the child, "your mother will be looking for you." The girl reluctantly handed the beadwork back to Morning Star. "Can I come tomorrow?" "Of course," Morning Star smiled, feeling Black Hawk's surprised gaze. After the child left, Black Hawk sat beside his wife. "You have a way with children. They're the same everywhere, Kiowa, Comanche, even white children, I imagine. Curious and quick to learn." Black Hawk picked up the unfinished moccasin, examining the intricate beadwork. "These are beautiful. They're for you," she admitted. "For when you—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Black Hawk set down the moccasin and took her hands in his. "Morning Star, I must ask something of you." She nodded, waiting. "If the fighting goes badly, if the white soldiers come here," he paused, his eyes intense, "you must return to your people. Wind Woman will ensure you have a horse and supplies." "I won't leave," she said firmly. "You must. I cannot fight if I am worried for your safety." Morning Star pulled her hands from his and cupped his face. "Then don't fight. Find another way." "What other way?" he asked, echoing their earlier conversation. And suddenly, an idea formed in Morning Star's mind, dangerous, perhaps impossible, but a chance nonetheless. "Let me go to the White Fort," she said. "Let me speak with their leader." Black Hawk stared at her in disbelief. "That is madness. They would take you prisoner or worse." "Not if I go under a flag of truce. Not if I go as a woman alone, seeking peace." "No," he said flatly, rising to his feet. "I forbid it." Morning Star stood as well, her chin raised defiantly. You cannot forbid what you cannot prevent. They faced each other, neither willing to yield, until Black Hawk's expression softened unexpectedly. Your courage would make any Comanche warrior proud, he said quietly. But this is not your battle. It became my battle when I crossed that creek, she replied. When I became your wife. The word hung between them, weighted with all the unspoken feelings that had grown over the months. Black Hawk stepped closer, his hand gently touching her cheek. My wife, he repeated, as if testing the truth of it. And then he was kissing her, his lips surprisingly gentle against hers. Morning Star's hands found their way to his shoulders, then into his long hair as the kiss deepened. When they finally parted, both breathing heavily, the world seemed to have shifted on its axis. I cannot lose you, Black Hawk whispered against her temple. Then help me find a way to prevent this war. She answered. Dawn broke misty and cool as Morning Star prepared for her journey. Against all expectations, Black Hawk had not only relented, but had helped convince Thunder Bear to allow her attempt at negotiation. The old chief had been skeptical, but finally agreed. They had little to lose by trying diplomacy before launching their attack. Remember, Black Hawk said as he helped her mount a gentle Dunmare. Approach slowly with this white flag visible at all times. He handed her a lance with a strip of white cloth attached. Speak only to their leader, Captain Reynolds. He is known to be more reasonable than others. Morning Star nodded, adjusting the doeskin dress she wore her finest, adorned with Kiowa beadwork, but also incorporating Comanche designs, a visible symbol of the alliance between the tribes. If you are not back by sunset tomorrow, Black Hawk continued, his voice tightly controlled, we will come for you. I will return, she promised, echoing his words from weeks earlier. Wind Woman approached, pressing a small medicine bundle into Morning Star's hand. For protection, the old woman said, her eyes revealing concern she would never voice. Morning Star tucked it into her belt pouch, touched by the gesture. Over the months, her relationship with Black Hawk's mother had evolved from wary acceptance to genuine respect. Now it seemed, perhaps even to care. With a final look at Black Hawk, whose face was set in lines of worry he couldn't conceal, Morning Star turned her horse toward the east and the white man's fort. 2 Comanche scouts would accompany her to within sight of the fort, then wait at a hidden location for her return. The journey took most of the day, the landscape gradually changing from open prairie to scattered woodlands as they neared the river where the fort had been built. By late afternoon, they crested a hill and saw it in the distance, a square wooden structure surrounded by newly cleared fields. There, one of the scouts pointed. We wait for you at the 3 large rocks beyond the north bend of the river. Morning Star nodded, suddenly feeling the enormity of her task. If I am not there by tomorrow's sunset, we will tell Black Hawk, the scout finished grimly. Taking a deep breath, Morning Star urged her horse forward, holding the white flag high. As she approached the fort, she could see movement along the walls, men with rifles, watching her progress. When she was within 100 yards, a voice called out for her to halt. I come in peace, she called back in English, a language she had learned years earlier from a trader who had spent winters with the Kiowa. I seek to speak with Captain Reynolds. There was a flurry of activity, and eventually, the gates opened slightly. A white man in a blue uniform stepped out, his hand resting on a pistol at his belt. I am Captain Reynolds, he said, eyeing her with suspicion. Who are you, and what do you want? I am Morning Star, daughter of Chief Gray Wolf of the Kiowa, wife to Black Hawk of the Comanche, she replied, keeping her voice steady. I come to speak of peace before more blood is shed. Reynolds studied her for a long moment. Dismount and come inside. Your horse will be tended. I would speak with you here, under the open sky where all spirits can witness our words. The captain seemed taken aback by her directness but nodded. Very well. Say what you've come to say. 8 Comanche warriors were killed while observing your fort from a distance, she began. They did not attack or threaten your soldiers. They were armed hostiles on restricted territory, Reynolds countered. Territory that has belonged to the Comanche since before your grandfathers were born, Morning Star replied. The Great White Father in Washington promised this land would remain with the tribes. Reynolds shifted uncomfortably. Circumstances change. The territory needs development. Development? Morningstar echoed. Your people call it development when you cut down the forests and kill the buffalo? The Comanche and Kiowa have lived here for generations without destroying what the Creator gave us. Times are changing, Reynolds said, but with less certainty. What exactly do you propose? Return to the original boundaries agreed upon in the last treaty. Remove this fort, which stands on sacred ground. In return, the Comanche and Kiowa will allow safe passage along the established trail to the west, but only the trail, not the land surrounding it. Reynolds shook his head. I don't have the authority to abandon this fort or redraw boundaries. Then who does? Morningstar asked. The Comanche are gathering warriors from all bands. The Kiowa have pledged support. There will be war unless we find another path. Something in her words seemed to reach the captain. He studied her face intently. You're serious about wanting peace. I have lived among both peoples. I have seen good and bad in both. But I have also seen what happens when the bluecoats bring their big guns against our warriors. Many will die on both sides. Reynolds was silent for several moments. I can send a messenger to Fort Smith with your proposal. It will take time for a response. How much time? 2 weeks, perhaps 3. Morningstar considered this. Will you cease expanding beyond the fort walls until an answer comes? I can do that much, Reynolds agreed. And will you meet with Thunder Bear and my father to discuss terms while we wait? This request clearly made the captain uneasy, but finally he nodded. A meeting. 3 days from now, at the Big Bend in the river. Each side may bring 5 men, no more. Agreed, Morningstar said. I will carry your words back to my people. As she turned to leave, Reynolds called after her. You speak our language well. I try to understand all peoples whose lives touch mine, she replied. It would be wise if more did the same. The return journey felt both longer and shorter than the outward one. Morningstar's mind raced with hopes and fears. Would Thunder Bear agree to the meeting? Would the chiefs in the east actually consider their proposal? Or was this merely delaying the inevitable conflict? The scouts met her at the appointed place, surprised and relieved by her quick return. They traveled through the night, reaching the Comanche camp as dawn broke once more. Black Hawk was waiting, his face showing the strain of a sleepless night. When he saw her approach, the relief in his expression was so naked, so complete, that Morningstar felt a surge of emotion tighten her throat. He helped her from her horse, his hands lingering on her waist. You succeeded? A beginning only, she cautioned, aware of the gathering crowd. Captain Reynolds has agreed to a meeting in 3 days. He will send our proposal to the eastern chiefs. Thunder Bear pushed forward, his aged face skeptical. Words. Always more words from the white man. Yes, Morningstar acknowledged, but words that may prevent deaths on both sides. The captain has agreed to stop expansion while awaiting a response. A heated discussion ensued among the tribal council. Some warriors argued for immediate attack, saying the whites were merely buying time. Others saw wisdom in postponing conflict, particularly if the Kiowa allies had not yet arrived. Finally, Thunder Bear raised his hand for silence. We will meet with this Captain Reynolds, 5 warriors, as agreed. But we will also prepare for war, should his words prove empty. The council dispersed, leaving Morningstar and Black Hawk standing together at the edge of the camp. You were very brave, he said quietly. I was terrified, she admitted. But fear doesn't matter when something important must be done. Black Hawk reached for her hand, entwining his fingers with hers. Come, you need rest. In their tipi, he insisted she eat and drink before telling him everything that had transpired. As she recounted her conversation with Reynolds, Black Hawk listened intently, asking occasional questions, but mostly absorbing her words in thoughtful silence. You believe this captain is sincere? He asked when she had finished. I believe he doesn't want war any more than we do, she answered carefully. Whether his superiors feel the same, I cannot say. Black Hawk nodded, then suddenly pulled her into his embrace. When you didn't return by nightfall, I thought. He couldn't finish. Morning Star wrapped her arms around him, feeling the strong beat of his heart against her cheek. I promised I would return. Don't leave me again, he whispered into her hair. Never by choice, she promised. The meeting at the river bend 3 days later was tense but productive. Captain Reynolds brought 4 soldiers and a translator, though he quickly realized Morning Star's translations were more accurate. Thunder Bear, Black Hawk, and 3 other Comanche warriors represented their tribe. Chief Gray Wolf arrived with 4 Kiowa warriors, including Morning Star's brother Little Fox, now called Swift Arrow. The reunion between father and daughter was brief but emotional. Gray Wolf clasped Morning Star's hands, his eyes shining with pride. You have brought honor to our people, he said. Your mother sends her love. The negotiations lasted from midday until sunset. The boundaries were redrawn on maps, concessions made on both sides. The fort would remain but would not expand beyond agreed limits. A trading post would be established where both tribes could exchange goods fairly. Most importantly, the sacred burial grounds would be protected from white settlement. As the meeting concluded, Captain Reynolds approached Morning Star. You have a gift for this, he said. If more of your people were like you, perhaps there would be less bloodshed. If more of your people were like you, Captain, she replied, the same would be true. 2 months later, word came from Washington. The treaty had been ratified with minor changes. It wasn't perfect. Black Hawk pointed out several clauses that favored the whites, but it was a beginning, a foundation upon which to build. That night, as they lay together in their tipi, Morning Star nestled against Black Hawk's chest, his arms wrapped securely around her. Do you ever regret it? He asked suddenly. Being forced to marry me? Morning Star raised herself on one elbow to look into his eyes. It was not my choice, she said honestly. But now, if given the choice, I would choose you again. Black Hawk's hand gently traced the curve of her cheek. When I first saw you crossing that creek, I thought you were the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. But I feared you would always hate me for taking you from your people. I could never hate the man who has shown me such respect, such care, she smiled. Even if he does snore like a buffalo. Black Hawk laughed, a rare and precious sound. The Comanche women say I chose well. And what do you say? She asked. I say that the Great Spirit knew what he was doing when he brought Morning Star to Black Hawk. He pulled her close again. Our children will be strong, wise in the ways of both tribes. Morning Star smiled against his chest, her hand moving to rest on her belly where, though she had told no one yet, she was certain new life had already begun. Outside their tipi, the night sky blazed with stars, watching over the Comanche and Kiowa lands as they had for countless generations, lands that, for now at least, remained in the hands of those who had always called them home.